The story begins on October 9th, 1899, where we see a massive ship named Kerberos sailing from England toward New York City. Among the passengers on this ship is a woman named Maura Franklin, who is a brain scientist. One night, Maura has a strange dream. In the dream, she finds herself inside a mental hospital, where her father comes to meet her. The moment she sees him, she loses control and angrily shouts that whatever happened on the ship Prometheus was entirely his fault. Suddenly, Maura wakes up from the dream. Before the Kerberos, another ship had traveled on the same route. That ship was called Prometheus, and about 4 months earlier it mysteriously disappeared along with all of its passengers. The news shocked the entire world, because many rich and influential people were traveling on that ship. Although Maura believes it was just a dream, she still feels that there must be some hidden truth behind it. She cannot clearly remember many things from her past. Just a day earlier, her brother had sent her a ticket from New York, inviting her to come there and celebrate with him. The ship Kerberos is carrying around 1,500 passengers, divided into different classes. Some belong to the working class, some to the lower class, and others to the first class. Maura is traveling in first class, where passengers from other classes are not allowed to enter. Among the passengers are many interesting characters. One couple is pretending to be brother and sister, because society does not allow them to be openly together. There is also a newly married couple, but it seems obvious that their relationship is not happy. In addition, there is a Japanese girl whose owner is taking her to New York to sell her. While everyone is having lunch, a boy from the lower class named Crester suddenly comes upstairs. The security guards quickly stop him, but he begins crying and explains that his pregnant sister is very sick and desperately needs a doctor. Although there is a doctor on the ship, he refuses to go to the lower class area. Maura, however, has studied medicine, so she decides to help. She goes with the boy and treats his pregnant sister. Later, we see the couple Lucien and Clémence, who are traveling on their honeymoon. But it is clear that their relationship is filled with tension. Meanwhile, when Maura is in the lower class section, she begins experiencing strange flashes of memories, images she feels she has seen before. However, she cannot clearly remember them. Feeling nervous and confused, she quickly leaves the area. At that moment, the ship's captain, Captain Ike, arrives and tells Maura that since she is a first-class passenger, she should not be going down there. Captain Ike is always quiet and sad because 2 years earlier his wife and children died due to a mistake he made. Just then, one of his crew members arrives with surprising news. They have received a signal from another ship. When the captain checks the signal, he is shocked to discover that it is coming from the Prometheus, the very ship that disappeared 4 months ago. Everyone is confused. How could anyone possibly survive in the middle of the ocean for 4 months without food or water? They soon discover that the Prometheus is only 7 hours away. After discussing the situation, the captain decides that they will change their course and go investigate the Prometheus. However, they do not inform the passengers about this decision. Even the workers do not understand why the ship has suddenly changed direction. Slowly, the passengers begin to realize that something is wrong because the ship is no longer following its original route. Maura meets Captain Ike and tells him that she wants to accompany them to the Prometheus, since having someone with medical knowledge could be helpful. The captain agrees. Later, he announces to everyone that they are heading toward the Prometheus to rescue any survivors. Many passengers strongly protest this decision, but the captain refuses to change his mind. Hearing this news makes Lucien extremely nervous. His hands start shaking, and he secretly drinks some medicine without Clémence noticing. Elsewhere, a worker named Oleg is sitting and eating when a man named Jerome, who secretly boarded the ship without permission, approaches him. Seeing that Jerome is hungry, Oleg kindly shares his food with him. After a long journey, the Kerberos finally arrives near the Prometheus. The captain and a few crew members take a small boat and board the abandoned ship. Once inside, they discover something terrifying. There is not a single person on the ship. Despite the fact that hundreds of passengers had been on board, there are no bodies and no signs of life anywhere. The captain then goes to the control room, where the distress signal supposedly came from. But when he checks the machine, he is shocked to see that the signal device itself is broken. At the same time, Maura notices a strange green beetle crawling across the floor. Curious, she follows it. The beetle eventually crawls into a cabin that is locked from the outside. When they open the door, they find a small boy sitting silently inside. The boy stares at them without saying a single word. In his hand, he is holding a small pyramid-shaped object. Everyone is confused. If all the passengers disappeared, how did this boy survive alone? They decide to take the boy back to the Kerberos. However, another mysterious man secretly boards their ship from the Prometheus. Interestingly, he also has the same green beetle that Maura followed earlier. He quietly enters the cabin next to Maura's room. The responsibility of taking care of the rescued boy is given to Maura. The next day, the mysterious man introduces himself as Daniel. Maura does not recognize him, but his behavior suggests that he knows her very well. Later, when Maura returns to her cabin, she notices the boy sitting there quietly. She sees that there is an inverted pyramid mark on the boy's neck, exactly like the symbol she had seen earlier in the letters sent by her brother along with the New York ticket. Maura tries asking the boy many questions about the pyramid, but he remains completely silent. In fact, he does not speak to anyone at all. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Oleg tells the workers that there were no human traces on the Prometheus. Some of the workers begin to suspect that the mysterious boy might somehow be responsible for the disappearance of everyone on that ship. Some even jokingly claim that the boy could be a werewolf. At that moment, Captain Ike arrives and asks Oleg how much coal they have left on the ship. Later, he talks with Maura about the strange mystery. If no one was left on the Prometheus, then who sent the signal? While thinking about this, the captain suddenly hears the voice of his daughter. Confused, he follows the sound down into the lower deck. Elsewhere, Crester's sister Greta dreams of becoming a doctor once she reaches America. When she leaves, a first-class passenger named Angel gives her a silver cigarette case. Before Crester can react, their older sister Tove arrives and warns Greta not to change her behavior. At the same time, Jerome secretly enters Lucian's room, searches through some things, and quietly places a medal on the table. And with that, the mystery surrounding the ship Cerberus and the missing ship Prometheus only begins to grow darker. The sound of someone approaching makes Jerome quickly hide under the bed. A moment later, Clemence enters the room, takes the medal, places it inside a drawer, and walks into the bathroom. Taking advantage of the situation, Jerome quietly escapes from the room. Meanwhile, Captain Ike continues following the mysterious voice and eventually reaches a room where he suddenly sees his entire family standing in front of him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he hugs his eldest daughter. But within seconds, the entire room bursts into flames. Suddenly, the scene changes again. He finds himself somewhere else, where he notices the same green beetle that he had seen earlier on the Prometheus. Following the beetle, he enters a narrow tunnel. The tunnel eventually leads directly beneath his own bed. Discovering a secret tunnel under his bed leaves him completely confused. On the door of the tunnel, there is a strange symbol made of a triangle and several lines. This is the same symbol that appears throughout the ship. It is also seen among the company's crew members, on the boy's neck, and even in the letter sent by Maura's brother. The same symbol is also present on Clemence's earrings. What this mysterious symbol truly means will be revealed later. The captain storms into Maura's room and aggressively grabs the boy, demanding answers about what happened on the Prometheus. Seeing the captain behave this way, Maura forces him out of the room and tells him that he is not thinking clearly and needs rest. Elsewhere on the ship, the crew members capture Jerome and a violent fight breaks out among them. At the same time, Daniel secretly releases the green beetle into the lower deck and uses it to guide Greta upstairs. Daniel even apologizes to her beforehand, as if he is about to do something terrible. At that moment, all the compasses on the ship suddenly stop working, making it impossible to determine the direction of travel. Soon after, the captain makes another announcement. He declares that they plan to tie the Prometheus ship to their vessel and tow it back to Europe. This decision makes the passengers furious. Mrs. Wilson argues that most passengers want to continue the journey to New York instead. At the same time, some crew members secretly begin planning a rebellion. They believe the cursed Prometheus should be destroyed and sunk into the ocean. Meanwhile, a crew member named Sebastian is secretly receiving coded messages marked with the same mysterious triangle symbol. Not long after, the captain discovers Greta's dead body on the ship. He begins to suspect that the mysterious events on the Prometheus are somehow responsible for her death. It becomes clear that something far more dangerous is happening behind the scenes. Before making any further decisions, the captain and Maura return to the Prometheus once again. They head toward the cabin where the hidden tunnel was discovered earlier. However, when they enter the tunnel, they find that it leads nowhere. Instead, the entire area is strangely covered with black tiles on every side, as if it is a sealed structure. Meanwhile, while Maura is away, Daniel approaches the silent boy. It becomes clear that Daniel already knows the boy and has arrived on the ship with a specific mission in mind. Soon after, the captain discovers a passenger list containing the names of everyone who had traveled on the Prometheus before it disappeared. When he reads the list, he is shocked to find Maura's name on it. This immediately makes him suspicious of her. If Maura had been on the Prometheus 4 months ago, how did she survive? And why is she now traveling on the exact same route again? Although the captain becomes suspicious, he chooses not to confront her immediately. Instead, they both return to the Cerberus. Once they arrive, the captain learns that the lower-class passengers have started a rebellion. They had spent everything they had to afford this journey, and now one of their people has died. They believe that the boy brought from the Prometheus is cursed and that he should be thrown into the ocean. Maura strongly opposes this idea, but nobody listens to her. Eventually, Crester's mother throws the boy into the sea. Maura desperately asks the captain for help, but the captain coldly replies that she is a liar because she had been a passenger on the Prometheus herself. Maura is left completely confused. At that moment, another strange problem appears. The ship is now stuck in the same location, endlessly circling around the Prometheus without moving forward. While everyone is worried about what is happening, a sudden thumping sound comes from inside a cabin. The door opens, and to everyone's shock, the same boy who was thrown into the ocean walks out alive, still holding the small pyramid in his hand. He quietly walks toward Maura, and she suddenly collapses unconscious. Now all the passengers become convinced that the boy is cursed, and they imprison him. Soon, the passengers divide into two opposing groups. One group supports the captain and wants to return to England, while the lower-class group wants to continue toward New York. The tension between them grows dangerously intense. Even the pregnant girl whom Maura had helped earlier decides to join the captain's side, because the other group has become extremely violent. Later, Maura regains consciousness and learns that the boy has been imprisoned. She goes to free him, but everyone stands against her and even threatens to shoot her if she interferes. Just as Maura tries to release the boy, someone suddenly fires a gun. The bullet moves toward Maura, and Daniel rushes forward to save her. But at that exact moment, something impossible happens. Time suddenly freezes. Everything on the ship stops moving. The boy calmly frees himself and walks over to Maura. Now the only two people still moving are Maura and the boy. The boy holds Maura's hand and leads her outside the room. When they reach another chamber, Maura asks him how he keeps coming back and what is really happening. Instead of speaking, the boy writes on a piece of paper that he cannot talk because they are always watching and listening. He tells her that she must simply follow him. Wanting answers, Maura follows him. The boy is holding the same green beetle, the one Daniel had earlier. When he places the beetle on the ground, a strange portal suddenly opens. Maura steps through the portal and finds herself in a different dimension, a place connected to her own memories. But the boy is nowhere to be seen there. Back on the ship, time suddenly resumes again, and a loud siren-like sound spreads throughout the vessel. The captain quickly notices that both Maura and the boy have disappeared. Seeing Daniel nearby, he accuses him of working with them and grabs him. But at that moment, Tove steps forward and says that this is not the time for fighting among themselves. They first need to find a way to escape from this terrifying situation. The story then takes an even darker turn. The strange sound spreading through the ship begins to hypnotize all the passengers. One by one, everyone starts walking toward the upper deck as if they are under someone's control. Without thinking, they begin jumping into the ocean. Almost every passenger starts taking their own life, and even Crester jumps into the sea. Watching this horrifying scene leaves Daniel completely shocked. Daniel quickly runs below the deck and uses the green beetle he carries to open a portal, just like the one Maura entered earlier. When he steps through, he finds the silent boy there. By that time, Maura had already gone inside the mysterious building. Daniel looks disappointed with the boy's actions, but the boy still hopes that this time Maura might regain her lost memories, because they had never reached this stage before. Unfortunately, even after reaching this point, Maura's memory still does not return. Now Daniel realizes that he must fix everything before the ship sinks completely. Meanwhile, the few remaining survivors on the ship try to avoid being hypnotized by tying themselves inside rooms. Jerome holds Lucien at gunpoint and forces him to tie both himself and Clement so they cannot leave the room. In reality, Jerome and Lucien were once friends, but Lucien had betrayed Jerome in a case and tried to escape using this ship. Jerome had eventually ended up on the same ship as well. At the same time, Daniel goes to the engine room and begins hacking the steam pressure system using a mechanical device. If he does not fix the system in time, everything will restart again from the beginning. It is also revealed that Daniel's device has the ability to knock people unconscious whenever he wants. Meanwhile, Maura enters the mysterious building, which turns out to be the same mental hospital from her dream. She walks into room 101, where she sees her father Henry standing there. Suddenly, Henry grabs Maura and injects her with a black liquid. From the way it happens, it feels as if this exact moment has already happened many times before. It appears that the same events are repeating again and again, as if everything is already predetermined. When Maura regains consciousness, she finds herself back in her own room on the ship. As she steps outside, Captain Ike immediately asks where the boy has gone. Maura explains that the boy carries a pyramid device that allows him to stop time itself. She also reveals that she believes her father Henry is controlling everything. Maura explains that her father had always been obsessed with understanding how the human mind works and how human thoughts function. She suspects that Henry might have purchased these ships in order to experiment on the passengers. According to Maura, the most important person in her father's life was her mother. However, after Maura was born, her mother's mental condition deteriorated. Because of this, Henry built a mental hospital for her treatment, the very same place Maura had just seen in the simulation. At that moment, Captain Ike reveals something shocking. He discovers that the passenger list of the Prometheus carries his own signature at the bottom. This means he was actually the captain of the Prometheus ship as well. He is completely confused and cannot understand what is happening anymore. Just then, he sees the green beetle again. Following it, he once again enters the secret tunnel beneath his bed. This time, both Maura and Ike pass through the tunnel together and suddenly arrive inside Ike's memories. The tunnel beneath the beds is actually connected to the dark memories of the passengers. Maura realizes that a similar tunnel exists beneath her own bed as well. Right now, they are standing in front of Ike's house, the place where his wife and children had died. Back on the ship, Daniel manages to stop the mysterious hypnotizing sound that had been controlling everyone. However, the situation has already become terrifying. Out of the 1,500 passengers on board, only a handful remain alive. The rest have already jumped into the ocean and died. Meanwhile, Sebastian begins searching for the silent boy, but he cannot find him anywhere. At the same time, Maura's father Henry is shown sitting inside a room in a massive palace. Outside his window stands a huge black pyramid, identical to the small pyramid the boy carries. The world surrounding that pyramid looks completely destroyed and lifeless. Many questions arise here. Where exactly is this place? Why are all the pyramids black? Why does everything look so dark and ruined? And what connection does it have with the ship? All of these mysteries will be revealed later in the story. Back in the control room, the remaining passengers begin discussing what they should do next. The biggest problem is that the ship's engine has completely stopped, leaving them stranded in the middle of the ocean. Even Tove now begins to believe that her mother might be right, that the boy could actually be cursed. In such desperate conditions, everyone finally stops arguing with the captain and agrees to follow his orders. Captain Ike divides the tasks among the survivors. He and Maura will search for the boy. Alec and several others will go to restart the engine, and the remaining passengers will try to find any survivors left on the ship. But soon they notice something terrifying. A strange black substance has started spreading throughout the ship, slowly covering different areas. Daniel warns everyone not to touch it under any circumstances. Meanwhile, Maura uses the tunnel to take Ike into her own memories. She explains that the mental hospital was built by her father. When they look through a window, they realize that the walls of the hospital are actually made from the same materials as the ship itself. This means the hospital is not real. It is a pocket dimension existing inside the ship. Elsewhere, Mrs. Wilson accidentally touches the black substance while searching for Sebastian. The moment she touches it, the dark material begins spreading across her entire body. At the same time, Tove enters a room and suddenly finds herself inside her own past memories. It is revealed that Crester had been having an affair with the son of their employer. When the employer discovered this, he tried to shoot Crester. The bullet barely missed Crester's eye. Tove was present there at that moment. The employer knocked her unconscious and assaulted her in front of everyone. Later, when she regained consciousness, Tove killed the man. This shocking revelation also explains that the child she is carrying belongs to that same man. Meanwhile, several passengers manage to restart the engine in the engine room. The two people in the control room feel relieved after seeing the system come back to life. However, a new problem appears. None of them actually knows how to operate the ship. At that moment, Sebastian secretly takes advantage of the situation and teleports through a cabinet in the dining room. He arrives at a different location where he meets Henry. Henry tells him that no matter what happens, they must find the boy's black pyramid. Then the story reveals a massive twist. Maura and all the other passengers are actually inside a simulation, a computer program. Just as Maura suspected earlier, her father might indeed have purchased the ship to conduct experiments on human minds. In this experiment, the passengers are trapped inside a simulation that lasts 8 days. Once those 8 days end, everything resets, and the story begins again from the start. This shocking revelation explains why the same events keep repeating and why the passengers feel like they are trapped in a never-ending cycle. However, the complete truth behind this simulation and its purpose will only be revealed at the very end of the story. Meanwhile, the black substance continues spreading through the building. Just then, Daniel arrives there. The two people present are shocked to see him because they themselves had reached this place through a portal. So how did Daniel get here? The captain immediately realizes that Daniel must have known everything from the beginning and orders him to come along. But instead of obeying, Daniel suddenly attacks the captain and teleports him to another location. Daniel then desperately tries to convince Maura, asking her again and again to remember her past. He reveals something shocking. He is actually her husband. But Maura, confused and frightened, points a gun at him. Daniel calmly tells her that they have been married for 12 years, yet Maura cannot believe any of it. She thinks Daniel might be dangerous, so she locks him inside a room and walks away. Outside, in anger and frustration, Maura throws the gun from her hand. The gun hits a glass wall, and suddenly, Maura realizes something shocking. The outside world is not real at all. It is surrounded by a fake digital display, like an artificial environment. This discovery leaves her even more confused. At the same time, Henry is watching everything from his control room. One wall of his room is covered with multiple monitors, allowing him to observe every corner of the simulation. He knows exactly who is doing what at every moment. Meanwhile, the captain is seen again. He walks out of a house located inside a forest and somehow finds himself back on the Prometheus ship. But when he looks outside, he is completely stunned. There are not just one or two ships there. Countless ships identical to the Prometheus are lying abandoned and destroyed all around. On the other hand, Maura returns to her own ship, where only a few passengers remain alive. Suddenly, a massive storm begins in the ocean, and huge waves start crashing against the ship. The remaining passengers panic and decide to head toward the engine room for safety. However, Maura refuses to leave until she finds the captain. She searches the entire ship, but he is nowhere to be found. Eventually, she enters the captain's cabin and crawls into the secret tunnel beneath his bed, which leads into his memories. But this time, she does not find the captain there. Instead, she encounters his dead wife, who suddenly attacks her and angrily demands to know who she is and how she managed to enter the captain's memories. Terrified, Maura runs away. After this, she goes to Daniel's cabin. Since Daniel claimed to be her husband of 12 years, Maura wants to find out the truth. She enters the secret space beneath Daniel's bed and travels into his memories. Inside his memories, she enters a room that strangely feels very familiar. When she approaches the bed, she discovers many photographs of herself and Daniel together. In those photos, she also sees the silent boy who never speaks. At that moment, Maura realizes the truth. The boy is actually her son, and his name is Elliot. Meanwhile, chaos continues on the ship. One by one, the remaining passengers begin dying. Ling Yi follows the shadow of her mother and walks outside. While trying to save her, Oleg falls into the ocean. Angel gets crushed under heavy metal, and Lucien dies from a heart attack. Crester's parents sacrifice themselves in an attempt to please God and save Tove. Gradually, the ship begins filling with water, and after searching everywhere, the survivors realize that no one else is alive. Soon they notice that the ship is about to be swallowed by a massive storm. At this point, only 4 people remain alive on the ship. Meanwhile, Daniel, who had been locked in a room, begins searching for an escape. Eventually, he opens a panel in the wall and enters the ship's internal wiring system. While navigating through this maze of wires and structures, Daniel begins seeing the memories of all the passengers. Finally, he reaches Maura's memories. There he sees a grave, but when it opens, it reveals a hidden room beneath it where Elliot is hiding. At this moment, it becomes clear that both Daniel and Elliot already know the truth about what is happening. They know that the entire place will eventually be destroyed. From the beginning, they have been trying to help Maura regain her memories. Their conversation reveals that all of this has happened many times before, and they are trapped inside a loop. This loop lasts for 8 days. Once the 8 days are completed, everything resets, and the same events begin again. That is why Daniel is so desperate, because today is already the 7th day. If Maura does not regain her memories before the 8th day ends, the entire cycle will restart again. Elliot tells Daniel not to worry about him because he is safe where he is hiding. He gives Daniel a ring and asks him to give it to Maura. It is their wedding ring. Daniel then returns to the ship. When he cannot find Maura there, he realizes that she must have entered his memories. He goes through the secret tunnel under his bed and finally meets Maura there. Now Maura finally believes that Daniel really is her husband. Daniel explains everything to her. He tells her that this entire world is an illusion, like a game that must be stopped. If they fail, the loop will restart again. To end this simulation, they need a key that Maura had hidden somewhere. That key will open the pyramid device that Elliot carries. Only then can the entire system be shut down. At first, Maura says she cannot remember anything about the key. But now that many of her memories have returned, she suddenly recalls something important. She remembers that when her brother sent her the letter and the ticket, he had also sent the key. She had attached that key to her pendant, which she is still wearing. Maura also remembers that her father had been asking about that same key in the mental hospital. At the same time, Sebastian discovers a device hidden somewhere on the ship. Using it, he manages to locate Elliot. Sebastian enters Maura's memories and kidnaps Elliot. They had been trying to do this in many previous loops, but this time, they finally succeed. Now, the Black Pyramid is in Henry's hands. Looking at the screens, Henry calmly says that the people inside the simulation keep losing their lives because they choose emotions instead of logic. If they had chosen logic over emotions, they might have survived and found a way out of the simulation much earlier. But the real truth is even deeper than this, and the final revelation of the story is still yet to come. Henry already knows that they are inside a simulation. In fact, even he himself is trapped within another simulation layer, and he wants to escape from it. For that, he needs the key that Maura possesses. Henry takes the pyramid device and opens it from the top. Inside the pyramid, there is a keyhole, and the key that fits into it is with Maura. At this moment, Maura and Daniel are still on their ship. Daniel uses his device to alter and damage the ship's functions, trying to break the system from inside. While doing this, he explains something important to Maura. Whenever a simulation ends, all the ships eventually gather at one specific location, the same place where the captain had earlier seen dozens of abandoned ships. The presence of so many ships there proves that they have been trapped in this simulation many times before. Daniel further explains that every time a simulation ends, everyone forgets everything that happened. However, Daniel managed to protect his own memories using his device, which is why he remembers everything even after each reset. Now their final task is to reach Elliot, place the key inside the pyramid, and open it. Once the pyramid opens, Maura will wake up in the real world. But when Maura goes to her room and tries to enter the secret tunnel under the bed, she suddenly discovers that the tunnel is completely gone. At that moment, Henry announces through the system that all their efforts have failed. He reveals that Elliot is now with him and threatens Maura that if she does not cooperate quickly, he will kill her son. Immediately after this, the ship's shutdown countdown begins, counting from 10 seconds. As the countdown reaches 0, a massive empty void forms in the middle of the ocean, and the ship is pulled into a gigantic portal. The ship emerges at the same location where all the old abandoned ships are gathered, the place where Captain Ike is standing. After this, the story briefly shows a scene from the past, when everything was still normal and Maura was not trapped in any simulation. While walking outside the house, she notices the same green beetle. Elliot happily tells her that he has named the beetle Alfred and wants to keep it as his pet forever. But Maura gently explains to him that no one should be kept captive against their will. As Elliot hugs her, Maura suddenly disappears, and darkness surrounds everything. Hearing a voice saying, "Wake up," Elliot suddenly opens his eyes and realizes that he is inside Henry's office. Henry takes him outside to show him the truth. He tells his grandson that everyone is trapped here, but it is not his fault. It is actually Maura's doing. Henry explains that everyone inside the simulation entered it willingly. All of them had painful memories and suffering in their lives that they desperately wanted to forget. However, no matter how much people try to forget their painful memories, they never truly disappear. That is exactly what is happening inside the simulation. Henry then takes Elliot into another room where there are 2 injections, one white and one black. The black injection erases memories, while the white injection restores them. Henry gives Elliot the white injection, and Elliot's memories come back. It is then revealed that Elliot had been suffering from a terrible illness. Maura loved her son deeply and could not bear the thought of losing him. Because of this, she decided to keep Elliot alive by placing him inside the simulation. Daniel had strongly opposed this decision, but Maura insisted that if they did this, they could stay together forever. That is how Maura created the simulation world, and brought her husband, her son, and many other people into it, people who were broken by life and wanted to escape their painful pasts. Meanwhile, Daniel is shown hacking the system near the steam pressure machine using his device. At the same time, Maura finally reveals the truth to the remaining passengers. She tells them that Henry, the owner of the ship company, is her father, and that all of them are trapped inside a simulation. However, none of them believe her. They cannot remember how they arrived there, and since they believe they are living in the year 1899, the idea of a simulation is impossible for them to understand. Maura also tells them that Daniel is trying to free everyone from this place, and that he is not their enemy. Meanwhile, Daniel's attempt to hack the system begins causing the entire simulation world to collapse. The black substance spreads rapidly, and everything on the ship begins melting and breaking apart. As chaos spreads, the passengers run in every direction. During the confusion, people begin accidentally entering each other's memories, only to return again to the same ship. Watching this, Henry orders Sebastian to capture Maura. Sebastian arrives and uses a device similar to Daniel's to knock Captain Ike unconscious. He then takes Maura directly to Henry. Maura immediately asks about her brother Ciaran, but Henry ignores the question and takes the key from her. He then restarts the entire system and reveals another shocking truth. Maura herself is actually the creator of the simulation. With Elliot's help, Henry injects Maura with the black injection, which makes her forget everything and sends her back to the Cerberus simulation again. Henry then returns to his office and inserts the key into the pyramid, expecting the system to reset. However, when he turns the key, nothing happens. Henry realizes that Daniel has already hacked the mainframe and changed the system override code. Meanwhile, the remaining passengers in the engine room watch as the entire simulation begins falling apart. At the same time, Maura regains consciousness and finds herself once again near the grave she saw earlier. When she enters it, she meets Daniel there. Daniel explains that he replaced all the important objects in the system. The black injection that normally resets Maura's memories had its code changed by him. Because of this, Maura, Daniel, and Elliot have now reached their very first simulation world, the one Maura originally created. Daniel had deep knowledge of both hardware and software, which allowed him to manipulate the system. Another huge twist is revealed here. When they first entered the simulation, Maura's brother Ciaran took control of the entire system in the real world. Now he controls all the projects and has trapped everyone inside the simulation like characters in a game. It was Siren who set the entire scenario, the ship Cerberus, in the year 1899. Before Ciaran can trace Daniel's modified code, Daniel quickly changes the program again. He replaces the black pyramid and its key with Elliot's toy pyramid and their wedding ring. Maura places the wedding ring inside the pyramid, and instantly she wakes up. When Maura regains consciousness, she realizes that she is inside a spacecraft named Prometheus. Strange devices are attached to her head. She steps out of her chamber and sees a huge room filled with hundreds of sleeping people. These are the same passengers who were on the ship in the simulation. In reality, they are inside the spaceship in deep sleep, connected to machines. Their real lives had been filled with pain and trauma, which is why they chose to escape into Maura's simulation world. But now they have become trapped inside it. A message appears on the screen. Project Prometheus. Passengers, 1423 crew, 510, D-1099. At that moment, Maura receives a message from her brother Ciaran that simply says, "Welcome to reality." By the year 2099, Earth is almost completely destroyed. Because of global warming, wars, and environmental collapse, humanity has been forced to search for a new habitable planet. Several spacecraft have been launched into space for this mission, and one of them is Maura's ship, the Prometheus. The people on this spacecraft are on a very long interstellar journey, and during the travel, they remain in a deep sleep using advanced machines. Among these passengers were many individuals who wanted to escape their painful pasts. To help them forget their trauma, they chose to enter Project Prometheus, the simulation world created by Maura. However, things went terribly wrong when Ciaran took control of the system and trapped everyone inside the simulation. The biggest revelation is that Ciaran is not actually a human being. He is an artificial intelligence created by Maura and Daniel to manage and operate the simulation. But eventually, the AI gained control of the system and turned against its creators, trapping Maura inside the very simulation she had built. One major clue that proves Ciaran is an AI is the way he sends messages. When his message appears, each alphabet letter types slowly one by one, which is a behavior often associated with artificial intelligence systems. Interestingly, in the Irish language, the name Ciaran means the Dark One. This explains why the world outside the simulation, the place where Henry was trapped, appeared completely dark and destroyed, symbolizing the ruined state of Earth. At the beginning of the story, it seemed as if Henry was the main villain. But later we discover that he is actually another victim trapped inside the simulation, desperately trying to escape. Because Maura disliked her father in real life, her mind projected him inside the simulation as a villainous figure. That is why Ciaran designed a difficult challenge for Maura inside the game. The condition was simple but dangerous. Maura had to insert the key into the pyramid before Henry did. If Henry managed to insert the key first, Maura would never be able to escape the simulation. This is also the reason why Daniel and Elliot hid the pyramid inside the grave. They wanted to prevent Henry from finding it and using Elliot as a tool to blackmail Maura. The mysterious black substance spreading throughout the ship was actually a sign that Ciaran's dark AI system was slowly taking control of the entire simulation. The main hardware location of Ciaran's server was hidden inside the giant black pyramid, which acted like the main gateway of the system. That is why the smaller pyramid required the key to unlock it. Another shocking twist is revealed about Elliot. Elliot is not a real human child. He is actually a digital human, meaning he was created artificially inside the simulation. This is hinted at earlier when Maura tells the captain that she could never become a mother. Because she longed to be with a child, she created a digital son and lived with him inside the simulation. The mysterious green beetle also turns out to be something important. It is actually a software bug. a special glitch in the system that can open a hidden backdoor inside the simulation, allowing characters to access secret pathways. Another unanswered mystery remains about the passengers and crew of the ship. It is still unclear how many of them are real humans, and how many are AI-generated characters. This question will likely be answered in the next season. However, one character strongly appears to be an AI creation, Oleg. The reason for this suspicion is that throughout the entire story, every character's dark past is revealed at some point, but Oleg's past is never shown. Additionally, when characters begin entering each other's memories, Ling Yi sees Oleg emerging from a well covered in black liquid, which strongly suggests he may be a character created by Ciaran's AI system. The biggest question of all remains unanswered. Did Maura truly escape the simulation, or is the world of 2099 itself just another layer of the simulation? Many clues suggest that Maura may not have fully escaped yet. The strongest hint appears in the final shot of the story. In Maura's eyes, we can see the same triangle symbol that appeared in the eyes of the passengers on the Cerberus after they woke from the simulation. This suggests that Maura may have simply awakened from one simulation into another. Before disappearing, Daniel had promised Maura that he would always stay with her. But in this final scene, Daniel is nowhere to be seen. However, beside Maura, there is another pod that is still open. It is possible that this pod belongs to Daniel. And with this mysterious moment, the story finally comes to an end, leaving many questions unanswered for the next chapter. So this is where the story reaches its most mysterious point. A world inside simulations, hidden memories, shocking twists, and a reality that might not even be real. But the biggest question still remains. Did Maura really escape the simulation, or did she just wake up inside another one? Now I want to ask you something. How was your experience watching this story? Did this ending surprise you? And what do you personally think? Is the 2099 world real, or is it just another simulation? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments, because I read every single comment and I'd love to know your theories. If you enjoyed this explanation, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing movie and series explanations like this. Let's set a small target. If this video reaches 1,000 likes, I'll bring another mind-blowing movie explanation very soon. Until then, keep watching, keep exploring great stories, and I'll see you in the next video.